Global stepper, man, I step across the continents. Took a moment, now I'm stepping with the confidence. Looking rough, but I'm still oozing with the opulence. Always had the sauce, just now I got the condiments. I feel like since they started doing academies, it's like more so been that way. But yeah, no, it's quite sick, our school, man. We had the theatre, we had the studio. We got to try quite a lot of different things. It was good.
We did. And on that bombshell, people, welcome to the podcast. So as you might have gathered, me and Caveman here actually go all the way back to high school. So when I discovered Caveman on Instagram and realized who it was, it's like we got to do a podcast together, because now he went from that cool G in high school to a full-on musician. You battle rap. You know, you've got an EP coming out next week.
Yeah.
Tell everyone what an EP stands for, because I know a lot of people don't know what EP is. It's going over their head right now.
Yeah, so it's kind of like antiquated language now. So EP stands for extended play. So when you would have like a record, like vinyl records, an EP would be anything that was maybe like 2 tunes on each side, so about 4, 5, 6 songs. And then an album would be anything, or an LP, a long play, would be anything longer than maybe 7 songs. And then you also had a single. An extended play, EP, is in comparison to a single, where it's just a single song on each side.
How many tracks on this EP of yours?
This one's 4 tracks.
4 tracks.
Mm-hmm.
Any particular song that you really enjoyed making?
Yeah, do you know what, right? They were all such different processes, but there's a comparison between 2 of them. So the single, Styles, which is out now, the video is already out. I got the beat from my boy Strange Soul, and me and him have done tunes before, and we have a thing where he'll send me beats, I'll listen to them, then forget about them, and then 6 months later find them and be like, yo, I'm gonna go do something with this. So this Styles got pulled out of the archive at a point when he'd actually already released it on vinyl with this other label or whatever, but we figured that out. And so I've gone, this is all the way back in January this year, I've gone to record it with my boy Chi, because there was the next guy came through, a guy called Mikey from Wakey, and Mikey from Wakey came through, and I was like, yo, I've never met Mikey from Wakey before, so I'm gonna bring my boy along in it. I'm sure Mikey from Wakey's cool, but like, I'm gonna bring my boy. So I brought my boy Chi, who does music as well, and we were all just chilling that night, and Chi was like engineering as I was recording, and he was like, yo, is the space for a verse on like the remix to this or something? And I was like, oh, to be honest, I don't like my second verse to this tune, innit? So why don't you just jump on the main one? So he recorded, I recorded, and then we spent months like mixing it, restructuring the song, going back and re-recording all the way up until earlier this summer when we shot the video. And now it's out. And so, yeah, that was one of my favorites. And it was a proper collaborative process between the producer, the MCs, the mixing, engineer, Beats by Blue. Yeah, man, so that one was fun. And then the others, there's 2 that I sat down and wrote in one straight go. On different days when I just felt like I had something I needed to say. I feel like this EP is a lot more introspective than my previous stuff.
Is it personal?
Yeah, it's very personal. I mean, the way it's written is it's like I'm not putting in the details to make it like, I'm not rapping about Lazo, but I'm rapping about our old friend from school. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like you'll hear it and you'll get my personal experience, but I'm not necessarily giving all the spelling out. But it is personal, more so than what I usually write. So they were both really, really enjoyable to write. Both ones where I feel like the lyrics are a conversation with the beat. And then the final one, Hang Tight, is just one from the archive, because we had an old studio, which we don't have anymore. Loads of stuff got lost when we moved out of that studio. And I found this one tune that I was just like, yo, this is such a banger. Why did I not put this out like 4 years ago? So that's just on there as well.
So the first thing I realized was, you said you sat on a beat for about 6 months and then you went back to it. Takes me back to a J. Cole lyric, him saying the same song on one of his latest albums. I think the song is called Let Go My Hand. And he talks like, he's like, he sent this a year ago So I've noticed that with musicians, you want to make sure it flows properly and it's real and deep. So sometimes the moment of inspiration just hits you. Like as a creative, I've been like that sometimes, whether it be architecture or podcasting. So like to give an example, I have a podcast. The first one that I recorded this year still hasn't been released. It just hasn't hit me, man. I haven't gone into that flow of I'm putting this one out. But going back onto you, so you said something about 4 years ago. When did you actually start making music then? Do you remember when it was? What stage of your life were you in? Like, why did you choose to start making music?
That's a really good question because it's been very staggered. So I think the first time I ever made, so the first time I rapped, I was maybe like 14. And then the first time I recorded a song, I was maybe like 18. But then I was never really focused on making music. That was never really what I was going for until I was about maybe 22. And then I started trying to learn some aspects of making songs. And I only put out my first solo, well, I put out my first solo tune when I was 22, 23, I guess. But I'd say I only really felt like I'd kind of got my process down in the last couple of years.
I'm seeing 4-year intervals here. Started rapping at 14, put a track out at 18, and came back to it properly at 20. That is every 4 years.
Yeah.
It's like a little seasonal thing.
That is interesting. I'd never thought of it like that.
But surely then it's to do with your growth as well. You had to grow into being Caveman.
Yeah, I think so. And I think again it comes down to like the reason that it took so long to record some of those tunes is sometimes you just need the perspective change. Like sometimes I might look, there was a time when I probably would have looked at like having social media to try and push music as just being a bit like, but now, like I thought it might be a bit corny or whatever, but I feel like now I can come back and look at it like, well, yeah, it might be a bit corny, but it's like doing that corny thing might enable me to go and do something that I think is sick and I really want to do. So I'd say it's about, yeah, it's about growth and shifting perspective. The same way, even doing a solo project, I always used to prefer to do things for everyone, do things collectively, and now I look at it like, well, I'm a part of the collective. So if I'm not doing well, then the collective isn't doing well. Do you know what I mean? So I learned to focus more on my own thing. And I think, yeah, like you say, I think that's what growth.
So you said you were doing things for other people. So you were in the music industry before you became a solo artist, obviously.
I suppose so. Yeah. It's not that industrial what I do though. Yeah, no, but before I was putting out music, I mean, I came up from rapping with Biggin, who we were talking about earlier, doing ciphers, going back to people, and I've always liked collaboration. I've liked environments, creating musical environments, putting on events, trying to get commissions where everyone can get a leg up and stuff. So yeah, I've always been kind of working on bobs and bits. And there's been times when I could have pushed myself forwards, but it just wasn't really what was on my agenda at the time. And I don't regret it because, growth, you have to do something to get to the next level.
You do have to grow into these things. You can't really force it. It's not, the creative field is not linear. It's not a straight path. Like, not much in life is. But for example, if you were trying to get a degree, there's a path already set out for you, which says you're going to spend 3-4 years studying and then this will qualify you for this. But there isn't really anything like that when it comes to being a rapper, having a podcast, being an actor. But your interesting thing you talked about Big in there, you said he started rapping and doing ciphers. Just one thing that I noticed growing up, I never heard him talk.
Yeah.
He was proper quiet, and like you're saying, like he was rapping with you.
Nah, he was beatboxing, he wasn't rapping. So the only way you could get a sound out of him was if he wasn't talking. Honestly, the amount of times I've been radio with Biggie and I've been like, yo, like this tune's about to end I need to run through to the room for a second. You just say, yo, you locked into this, whatever, and you just be like, no, I don't want to, you know. Yeah, he's just a quiet guy. He's more chatty now and stuff. But yeah, he was a quiet dude. But yeah, beatboxing.
It must have been. And then you both just stuck to it and stuck together as well. So
Yeah.
have you been collaborating with him recently?
Nah, not really, you know. I think for him, like we were talking earlier about how like a lot of people in our school who rapped back in the day kind of moved away from it. And I think it's just hard to find the time to do these things. And I think with Biggin, maybe he moved to a point where he felt like beatboxing was like a skill he had in the back pocket. It's a parting trick, he can pull it out anytime. And I think he beatboxes to himself all the time, but I don't think it's a focus for him is trying to get bookings this bigger or work on releases. So whenever I see him, we'll do a little something back to back. But nah, no, we haven't really collaborated in a long time. But there was a period when we was like a duo in it, and we'd go about and like he'd do a set, I'd do a set, and we'd do a set together and stuff. We did a little thing together last year. That was sick. So yeah, no, we do bits and bobs, but I always used to try and get him to come studio as well, and he'd always be like, "Oh yeah, I will," but never did. So I just I accepted that wasn't where his head and his heart was.
So tell me about the way you actually make your music. You've alluded to it. So far, you've talked about like on one occasion you wrote 2 tracks in a day. On another occasion, it took 6 months. Generally speaking, does Caveman have a certain way of making his art? Do you write? Do you think it? Do you do it there on the day? Is it a mixture? So how do you actually produce the content that everyone enjoys so much?
So it can come in multiple different ways. Sometimes those tunes I said earlier, I recorded 2 tunes in one day, but it wasn't the same day. So I mean, both 2 different times I sat down, I wrote an entire tune in one go. But actually, earlier this year, I did put out an EP, not an EP, a 2-part project that was all written in one day. So I'd say it really comes down to the inspiration comes from one of a few places. Sometimes you throw in a beat, and the beat, I feel like it's like a key, and it can just unlock something within you. And I think that one really comes down to timing. If you listen to like a sad, introspective beat when you're feeling sad and introspective, it might be all you need to sort of open it up and give you the opportunity to go and talk about what you need to go and talk about. Whereas sometimes you might listen to a different beat and it gives you a feeling, and so you go and you think about that feeling. Then other times you might start with the bars. It might be you just say something or hear something that just sounds cool, or you feel like you have something that needs to be said. Very often, there's certain beats I'll go to and I'll write to those beats. And then when a song arrives, it presents itself, I can write there. I wrote a verse on a train the other week. Very often I'll have the bars floating around for a while until the beat arrives. But I also really like the tunes where I don't do that. So yeah, it's just such a variety of things, bro, where there's just a million different ways to do it. Like I put out a tune the other week, no, last year, called By the River, and that's like a lo-fi kind of chilled out hip hop song. But I wrote the verse for like a liquid drum and bass tune, and I just had it there, and I was like, do you know what, this actually works better over here. So I think my whole thing is kind of like a collage, like a scrapbook kind of collage, and it just entails everything about me if you look deep enough into it.
No, I get that. So what umbrella would you actually put your music style on? Hip hop, grime, trap? I mean, I know it's not, I know what it is, but
Yeah.
the listeners, like, how do you actually label your music?
No, I'd say it's hip hop. It's hip hop.
Where does your inspiration come from? Like, do you have any artists that you grew up listening to, or any new artists that you think, I kind of like this sound? Can I emulate something like this? Can I be on that same wavelength?
Yeah. Certain people. I mean, for me, a lot of what my early inspiration was people around us, just like MCs in Manchester and stuff, and people I'd hear rapping, but I definitely listen and learn from things. There was a guy I did a show with earlier this year called Testament Homecut, and he's sick, man. He's like a beatboxer and a rapper and a singer and a freestyle MC as well. And I was just so inspired by his stuff. I went and wrote a new tune just off the back of that. There's one where I was listening to some DWE that inspired some stuff off my previous project, and I liked the way there's him and there's another guy called Diligent Fingers. He's from Manningham. Both of them in their different ways. Like Diligent Fingers, I guess, comes from like drum and bass. Obviously, DWE is a grime MC, but it's like I like the way they were able to incorporate. Those are both very live genres that are based around rapping in a room to the people in the room, but they were able to implement them into their music. I think it's a DWE tune called Lyrical Hypnotist or Lyrical Hypnosis, where it's like he's got all the aspects you like about him from grime, but it's on lovely music. And Diligent Fingers and a guy called Chimpo, so he's sick for that, where he kind of implements these live elements into his music. So that inspires me, and I'm inspired by good songwriting. Kano's someone I'm into. But at the same time, I like to listen to music that takes me away from the music that I make, because then I can feel less comparison and I can focus on like the heart of the music.
So you want to listen to music that takes you away from the music you're making.
Yeah.
But does music take you away from your life sometimes? Do you feel like when you're making music, you are somewhere else, you are zoned out, problems don't matter anymore? What do you think?
When I'm making music, I do think there's like a space above the earth, in like the earth's stratosphere. And when I'm lucky on a good day, I get to go into that place for a little while when I'm making and performing music. At the same time, I think music helps me talk about things that I find it hard to talk about in person. And I think music's an outlet for me. I think sometimes when I'm on stage, I look gassed, and then I come off stage and I'm chilling. And it's like, it's not an act, it's not a performance. That's really how I feel. But it's just, I have an outlet for it. And I can go and be that person in a, I don't know, like a controlled environment, and then I can come out of it. So yeah, music, it allows me a lot of freedom, and I think it keeps me balanced.
I got a question here.
Yeah, man.
Making music in the studio and battle rapping, these are different, but describe how. So often battle rappers will say everything comes off the dome, right? But that's not always true, especially if you know who the person is you're going to be battling that evening. But is it? Do you sometimes have to adapt? Do you just get hit with a ball and you're like, shit, I have to say something else now?
Yeah, so now the majority of battle rapping in the UK now is written. Prep and get ready for it and stuff. Especially when you've got like 3 months to get ready for a battle.
That
It's too long. My favorite period of time is maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks is ideal. Well, yeah, no, it's totally different, bro, because it's like battle rap is a one-time thing. Like, say I'm recording a tune at the studio and the bar's meant to be, yo, I go to the park, yeah, and I go to the park. Oh, shit. It's okay. Just go again. I can record this 125 times tonight. And if I don't get it right tonight, I can come back and do it another 125 times more. In battle rap, if I say I go to the plaque, I always and forevermore will have said that I've gone to the plaque. Also at the studio, you're there with people either people you are paying for their time, or people who like are your people and love you and are there to help you in it. Whereas in battle rap, like, you're trying to impress a crowd. There's a guy in front of you who wants you to fail. It's a lot, man. I think I think the whole difference between recorded and live performances is always going to be different anyway.
Yeah, but there'll be like a concert, a show, rapping at the club, but then there will be battle rapping.
Totally, yeah, totally.
And that crowd is always lit. They're looking for something, your opponent. Oh, that is something else. Is there any particular battle rap? Because one of your clips went viral. You said something about, I don't want to butcher it, so you can repeat it if you want. Something about the guy in a Just Eat advert.
Oh,
I remember that shit just going around in like on Instagram. I saw it on my account.
Oh, serious?
You slayed the guy right there and there, or at least it appeared like you did on that particular verse.
Yeah.
Is that one that kind of like comes to memory and you're like, that was a good one there.
Man.
Was that a win for you that day?
Yeah, so that wasn't judged. That wasn't another annoying one because I had 2-3 months prep for that. I spent the whole summer prepping, and I got off stage. I was like, "Who running?" They were like, "Oh, but we'll let the audience decide." Get out of it. But that bar was funny. I said, "Well, what are you even doing here? It just seems absurd. You discovered hip hop last year from the Just Eat adverts." And the thing with that one, yeah, I'm glad you asked me about that. Is that bar is sick, yeah, because you've got just seems absurd and Just Eat advert. So that's a 4-syllable rhyme. But the way it's effective because it's about the rhythm of it as well. It's all twos, it goes. It just seems absurd. You discovered hip hop last year from the Just Eat advert. You know what I'm saying? So it makes it land in a way that I don't even know that that's what you're hearing.
And it makes sense as well for anyone who doesn't get it. Why is Just Eat involved in this? Because Just Eat did that campaign where it has Snoop Dogg rapping.
Yeah.
You get me? So that is a healthy way. I've never seen that. Just getting it.
Yeah, man. There's a few lines that I really like. About a guy called Gaz Time. And I said, and I like this because I feel like every line of this 4-bar adds up. I'm going, you couldn't beat me with a ghostwriter and a vocal tutor. So that's the way you sound and the way you write. Neither aspect can beat me in it. You couldn't beat me with a ghostwriter and a vocal tutor. You couldn't headline karaoke at your local boozer. You are an abject failure, a total loser. A man called Time, but he's got no future. I love that because I feel like with that one, it's like every bar contributes to the final bar kind of thing. So yeah, there's a lot of little ones that I like. But another thing is you forget it. Like once the battle's done, you don't ever get to use that material again. You just forget about it. Which is another thing that's totally different between music and battle rap is, I can write a song and I could perform. The new project, Civilized Habits, I'll be able to perform these songs for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And do you know what I mean? And there's something very different about it. It's a different excitement. I get very excited on the day of the battle, to be honest, just because it's, if I'm feeling it that particular day, it is exciting because it's like, yeah, this is your one chance to do this performance. And if you land it, then you will have landed it in it.
Do you feel like drop freestyle? And then if it's bad, no one has to know it was ever dropped. Because I can edit when I'm live.
Yeah? You haven't beat or anything?
I don't. It has to be a cappella. I just randomly said that. It just came as an idea. It might as well have some fun with it.
Yeah. But now you said if it's bad, it doesn't come out. Yeah. And
No, as in like...
and it ain't in there. I was be like, right, why don't we just there?
No, but like...
Record this.
But that comes down to you though. You make the decision.
I'll just show you the bar from the new verse. So this is my verse from Styles. Yo, I come in like a bulldog in a china shop. Beats banging like the farmers when they find a fox. I'm committed to these rhythms, let me tie the knot. And I'ma ride my wave if the tides are high or not. I was raised in the city around all kinds of imagery. I don't align myself with small-minded bigotry. So running that cacao while you talking to me is like telling String the Bell that it's 40 degrees. I said, geez, my style's diabolical. Future roots, the style's kind of horrible. I'm chilling on an island where it's tropical. Maybe man and move, but I don't find it probable, right? I don't compete, I'm just too competent. I put my work in, well deserving of the compliments. Starving eyes, keep my distance off the obvious. I've always had the sauce, just now I've got the condiments.
I like that. Yeah, same goes out.
So the start of it's off Styles, which I just dropped a video for earlier this week. And
I think I might have seen that.
Yeah.
I might have seen it. Yo, can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Do you think this new social... Because me and you, we, being the same age, we came through a period in high school and college where social media was like growing, but it wasn't what it was today.
Yeah.
So we've seen teenage life with and without social media, right?
Mm.
Do you think it adds a different level, not just to your reach, but do you think it makes the game a bit more political? That it takes away from the artistry and people focus on the numbers more? How do you think it's impacting the industry for good or for worse?
So one thing I've noticed, because I do some youth work and stuff, like a lot of them, they don't want to stand around in car parks and rap all night, which is a pretty reasonable thing to feel, isn't it, really?
What is it? Or is that just a part of like me, like being with my boys and rapping on a late night? I don't have much else to do. I'm not being paid for it. These are my beginning stages into that form of artistry. Or shouldn't that always be a part of it? It's like paying your dues, man. It's like 10 years back, you look at it and you're like, that's where I started, bro.
Yeah.
We drive 4 or 5 men in a car and just start rapping.
What I'd say about that is maybe you're applying sentimentality onto something that they don't feel sentimental about.
Okay.
So as much as I have those memories of those times and I value them, I can't say that they need to feel that value. So, because I feel like the highest level rap in the UK when we was teenagers was like Tinchy Strider and End-Ups. And then there was like certain other people who were up and around there.
Bugsy came through, but Bugsy being a few years older than us, I remember going to one of his shows. It was in Manchester Academy 2. This was before he even went to prison, which he talks about a lot in his music anyway, but I'm trying to give his fans a timeline. If there's any Bugsy fans on this listening to this, you'll know what I'm trying to say. And he's from Manchester, so we always repped him. He was with CavemanM8, Dante, and just some other acts who many of them might not even be around right now, but you know what I mean? Your beginning stages. Do you think now, because of social media, people can feel like a star quicker because they have the online numbers, but not maybe necessarily the crowds to go with it? Even the money, like I don't really know how that works in this industry, but you see what I'm trying to see? Like,
Yeah, no, I do. And I think people are often surprised when they learn about the dues that some of these acts have paid. Because a lot of these guys, like they're chunting along, doing their thing, building their name in their neighborhood, and then they have a freestyle that goes off, and then they delete everything that was online prior to that, and so the new fans come in and think, "Oh snap!" Like they think that Straight Lines was the first time H ever rapped.
is that a perception thing?
I think that is, yeah, because I think it's about limiting how people see you. It's definitely about limiting your weaknesses. And I would say I don't perceive having been a so-so rapper when he started rapping as a weakness. I think that's normal.
It's not a weakness at all, man. Like, I don't see myself willingly, or at least unless there was a circumstance to it, I wouldn't see myself deleting podcast number 1 just because podcast number 50 is better.
Yeah.
I'd never see myself doing that. And actually, to talk about podcasting like that, Joe Rogan has over 2,000 podcasts now. How crazy is that, right? I don't think he's deleted any.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are probably just him and his boys just having some fun at the beginning, and all of that is available. Even rappers, man, you can find their EPs, you can find their underground work. So I do think that's what I mean about social media. It adds a different element of pressure because now perception matters. People want to see what you look like, how you sounded, and they got something to scrutinize. And that makes the artist feel that maybe what they put out at the beginning isn't worthy of being shown. But like you're saying, those are your early days. You need to be proud of that.
Yeah. And it's interesting, man, because it all relates to like the fact you're reaching new audiences, like because we know when someone's put out a tune. If you put out a tune in a freestyle, I saw it in it. And just because you take it down a year later, I saw it and I remember, and I've been around long enough that I remember some of these people's first freestyles and stuff. And so I think that is something that I think social media's changed, is it feels more possible for us to like redefine reality. and retell our own story, but not just tell our, but like we can retell our own story, and like you can change it as many times as you want. And I think that does change it. And I think maybe for young people coming up now, like that changes the whole way that you feel about even like yourself. Like, but yeah, I think social media has changed it. But I also feel like maybe social media is like sped up what's been going on for a long time. And artists have always been manufactured. Like in like the 60s, they used to make all the Supremes have the same haircut and dress the same way. That wasn't the way that they really dressed, spoke, walked, looked, or anything, but it was manipulating that reality.
Tell me about that a bit more because this is industry politics.
Yeah, so this is something I was learning about earlier. So the Supremes, Diana Ross and the Supremes, like 60s, uh, like I guess our early R&B band with Motown. And so Diana Ross was the lead singer, and the Supremes were like the three backup singers, and they all, I think everyone who was signed to Motown had to go to like elocution lessons, learn how to talk, how to dress and perform. And they were building up these artists in a way where they could be changed out. So Diana Ross is always Diana Ross. But if one of the Supremes, and it did happen, gets depressed and starts drinking, like we can fire her and we can bring in another girl who can sing, and we'll dress her the same way, give her the same haircut. And do you know what I'm saying? It's still just that thing of redefining reality for profit.
Yeah, so the industry politics. Before I ask you another question, rap does that, doesn't it, bro? Because as someone who's listened to rap from the ages of like 13, 14, I noticed that, and I don't really like this particularly, but not to disrespect anyone's craft. A lot of the rappers sound the same, man. It's and then what I always found ironic about that is the best rappers have found a way to use their actual creativity to be different. So the best rappers in the game in the last 10 years have been Kanye, Wayne, Drake, J. Cole, Kendrick. I think that five is undoubtable, right?
They're the big five.
But what I'm saying is these five have always had their own style. I've never heard Wayne sound like Drake, never heard Drake sound like Wayne. My point is, if it's the uniqueness, partly to do with the uniqueness, that's making these guys the top five, right? Let's say. Then why do so many of artists sound like everybody else?
Good question. I think streaming, I think probably has a lot to do with that. I think because you're making music now to be put in playlists, so you want your music to be, you know, easy to blend into other tunes. Because you don't have the luxury of people coming and buying your album and just listening to your music for you. I think
Why would you say that is? Why does an artist not feel confident enough to think, I'm going to stick with my style and it will change over time, but I will stick with my style and I don't have to try and sound like what's going viral right now. I mean, it happens in everything. Like if anyone's ever been on TikTok for more than 10 minutes, there's like 10 different content creators create the same video. So I get it, things work and you want to follow that path. But what stops an artist from showing their uniqueness?
for a lot of people, I think it will have to do with the love of the music. And it's like there's some people who really, really love music and really love writing songs and creating stuff, and there's other people who are ready to hit a lick. And I think if you're just coming into it like, yo, this is working, I'm gonna jump on that. And if this time next year I'm not a rapper anymore, I don't really care. I hear it. I also think, like I say, streaming has a massive thing to do with it. It's about being acceptable. People aren't doing physical sales and stuff how they once did. So you only have people for so long. And I think sometimes people don't have the confidence or the, and I think that's probably always been a thing in music. I reckon for every Sex Pistols, there was probably 100 other punk bands that you've never heard of that basically were just doing the same thing as them. Like there's so many sub J. Cole and sub Drakes that I think, you know, there's always going to be a differentiation between that. But also, I do think that some of that culture shift is to do with it is as a result of that. So when I say we're not chilling in car parks rapping all day anymore, it's like that's fine. But there were certain things that came out of rapping in car parks and it was sounding different, like aiming to sound different. I don't think is as much of a value to a lot of new musicians. I think they're looking towards where can I go with this? What can I achieve? How can I change things for myself and the people around me? And I get it. Yeah, it's just about your ambitions with it, I suppose.
I think there was a level of freedom to just rapping with your friends in a car park that you don't have with the lens on you.
Yeah.
Bob Marley has this quote, and actually Drake drops it at the end of his song called Paradise. And just to paraphrase it, he says, "The thing about music, it can be copied,
Mm.
but it can't be copied because it comes from the soul."
Mm-hmm.
And I think, not to discredit any artist, but life is circumstantial, right?
Mm.
And you have to make decisions about sticking to your craft for a long period of time. Because those people that generally come and go and they're popping for a few songs, if they're not consistent, then they're not around in 4 or 5 years, right? My point being, though,
Mm.
life is generally about sacrifices, right? And I think the best artists also sacrifice a lot for their craft even before they really start to eat off it. Because there has to be a certain love and passion and a level of consistency. And that doesn't mean you rap every day, bro, because life doesn't work like that. You know what I mean? Sometimes you're unwell, sometimes a family member's unwell, sometimes you just can't. But you push through and make things happen on a consistent basis so you can actually see the growth. Like, if your podcast comes out next, for example, which is actually the aim, right? So you'll be podcast number 28, but I don't think I'll ever be proud of myself until I see myself reaching hundreds, because then I'll think I have earned the right to get closer to that table. How can the people above me that are successful in my industry? I don't know if the mic is picking that up, but I was passionately ranting there. But let me just go back onto that, guys. If the people who are setting the standards in my industry, if they have hundreds of episodes, how can I feel comfortable in myself until I've reached that goal?
Okay, so I think social media allows for something. So imagine you made episode 1, then you made episode 2, and then episode 3 you put it out and it's just banged. It's just you've done 100K views in the first week. Now you are suddenly in a great position in it, and probably the people at that table are looking at you like, "Right, Lazo's okay, cool, I see it." But you still only done 3 podcasts, and I feel like all of these things that you need to learn, you haven't been able to learn them. It's just the way that it's worked out. You've kind of popped out soon, yeah, very soon in your journey, and I think maybe that's something that is possible for some of these young artists is, I mean, just the ability to put your music on streaming. You can make your first song and put it on Spotify. So you're doing all your learning in public and it's possible for it to pop off. So maybe a part of why some of these artists, like, we feel like sound the same is because they are, the industry and the way people consume music's changed so that you can hear someone's first attempt. And I think it's natural in your first attempt, you're gonna, you know, I've got influences that I learned from and I drew from, but I learned over time how to balance who I am with the influences, with what the song needs, and all of these things that maybe, at the start you don't have the balance quite like.
I think you're 100% right with that. And you do need influences. No one really ever reinvents the wheel.
Mm.
As it's like a Game of Thrones. The wheel just changes in a different house.
Yeah. You could just put your own spin on it, innit?
Yeah, but what I would say is, though, it's like that in every industry. So most cars are the same, and I don't mean by that I don't mean they have 4 wheels. That's obvious. But even the shapes, the aerodynamics, a lot of your favorite cars have the same engines, right? Architecture is very similar. So we're sat in this amazing place, but we can go to the other building down the road and it'll have a space like this. So to your point, in every creative field or industry, there is something that works. But you can never get that unique thing until you keep going. So many amazing things also just happen by accident sometimes. It's like you worked 10 years or something and you had many projects where you thought, that's going to work. And all of a sudden, the one that pops off maybe is the one that you weren't even thinking of.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think that's totally a thing. And I think if you look at all the buildings from the 1930s, they kind of look similar. And then you look at stuff from the 60s and they kind of look similar. It's like, this is what I'm saying, like the majority of the field at any time is probably just reflecting what's kind of going on at the top of the field.
Yeah, because they say if it's not broken, don't fix it, right?
Yeah. And
Which is a real thing if you're putting millions into a building. But also, to your example about buildings, it also shows policy and politics, right?
That's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
It's like, so I think there's two ways that you get a big change. And one is occasionally you just get someone who's a maestro, you get a new innovator who comes up with a new idea that changes what everyone does. But half the time, it's like right now, the thing that's in Manchester is like old buildings combined with like a new glass front, right? But like, say in 5 years, there's like a climate change policy that requires buildings to no longer have glass fronts. You're going to see that cut off and change. And that's one thing that I feel like happens in art as well, where, like there can be in technological jumps, like when sampling technology reached a certain point in like the 90s, it changed the way that music was made and sounded changed because of certain things that happened that just outside of the control of the artist. AI music is going to change things. You know what I'm saying? It's really going to change things. But that's not because that I can't help that. That's just the way of the world. Do you know what I mean? So I think totally, yeah, you're right. It's in buildings, it's policy and procedure, and maybe music, it's to do with again policy. If copyright law does a 180 now, then it's going to change things. But
I'm glad you brought up AI, man, because that is actually crazy. I go online and I see a Michael Jackson song sung by Donald Trump. And it's actually crazy. So you're in the industry. How does that, or how can it potentially, you're not seeing it yet properly, how can it potentially affect yourself and other artists out there if AI was able to emulate Caveman?
well, so there's a lot of different aspects to that, because you could say, yeah, once AI can emulate Caveman, then I'm kind of out of a job, right? But there can also be a great advantage, because there could be a guy in India who's got a rock band and he just loves my stuff. He can now have a Caveman verse without having to get in touch with me, and he can go and do things with that. I think AI can help with mixing and mastering tunes, which again, it can take certain people out of a job, but it creates new opportunities for new people. And we're always going to have to learn to adapt to what's going on. So I do think there's certain aspects where, like, I don't know how it's going to change creativity. It's going to be hard to remain ahead of it. The people who have all the power and resources are always just going to do shiesty stuff. That's how they got there, and that's their thing. But for example, if I'm doing a show and instead of hiring a bunch of lighting, I can just set off an AI lighting monitor and desk. You know what I mean? Like, now my show looks 100 times better than it did beforehand. So
No, that's a good example. So lighting, I don't know, 40, 50 years ago, you'd need someone to always maybe turn the AC on and off. Now it's temperature regulated. So like the university that I was at last year, they had this whole AC system for this massive building, bro, which throughout the whole year was regulated by a system. But jumping back onto music, would there be copyright laws? Could someone from India just grab a verse and get away with it?
I'm not super clued up on that. I mean, I think basically yeah, to an extent, it's like, unless if they're taking my lyrics and getting the AI to re-record them, then I'd have a copyright claim. But I don't know what the limit is on using people's likenesses and stuff. I don't know, and I imagine a lot of those laws are going to change over time now, because it's like with anything, the same thing with the internet. Like for the first 10 years, it was basically do whatever in it, and then it gets regulated.
I have a question, right?
Mm.
And I have actually asked this on my Instagram account before, so I did get some answers off my listeners and viewers.
Mm.
But asking an artist is different. If Caveman was offered a lump sum of money, a few million, let's say, but they said to Caveman, from here on out, we own your sound. And it's AI, so once it picks up your sound, it can put it into any lyric format, right? So it can rap you to Eminem if it wanted to, right? Caveman, one-time deal, few million on the table. We take your voice, your likeness, your name. We own all of that, and we don't need you for anything. You can just go and do whatever you want with that money and your time, but you have to sign off those rights to us. How would Caveman respond to something like that? Hypothetically, this hasn't happened for anybody. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, I feel like if someone can just slap you a couple mil, then there's a lot more than that. Do you know what I mean? On the side. Do you mean like I would no longer be able to be Caveman?
You wouldn't need to be. They would own your name, your voice, and the rights to any future music, but they don't need you to do anything. You can sit and retire for the rest of your life.
Do you know what? Yeah, I would not even want to sit in a room with a person who would even approach me with an offer like that. I would say get this plan out of it. Like, nah, I'm not into it. I want to rap, man.
Wait, hold on though, hold on. This could, I mean, it's hypothetical. This could be life-changing money, because that is life-changing money, and you never have to do music again, which is the biggest punishment, actually.
Well, yes.
So you lose your passion. And we're already seeing artists do that on a certain level, because I'm going to ask you about what you think about signing deals later and if you have one. But people do it all the time, right? They sign a 360 deal and they'll make a 5% cut off an album, and their masters and their album is owned by the label. So the industry has already seen artists do that, give away a lot of themselves, right? I think people like Prince were some of the first people to come out, rest in peace to Prince, and argue for, look, yo, I want my masters back. Many rappers are doing it now. Many rappers are also going independent. Chance the Rapper got famous. He was independent, you know?
Yeah.
But what is the difference between my album not being owned by me and me getting 5% cut and everything just being owned by a label and they can do whatever they want?
So there's people signed deals in 2002, and now their music's on Spotify, and they've never seen a penny from Spotify. But when they signed their deal, Spotify didn't even exist. Streaming didn't even exist. If I sign something now and sign away my rights, in 5 years from now, we could have a new technology where, do you know what I mean? Like, if you blink 3 times, you can listen to any song that you want, and I will never be able to profit from that because I've signed away the rights to all my music. I think for me, bro, like, if you gave me 5 mil now, yeah, I'd probably buy a house, yeah, and then go shopping, and then I'd sit there with like 465 million, just like, what am I going to do with this now? Do you know what I mean? Like, I think if you want to just take the short, get the money and bounce and flip with it, then that's cool. But it's just not me, man. It's not like what I'm into. And when people sign some of these deals, it's like you lose the right to put out your music when you want to. Like, that was why Prince did the whole thing where he got rid of his name, because he felt like he wasn't him anymore. And it was like Prince could make like an album a month. So he signed to do a 4-album deal, and he could have banged out his 4, but like a year and a half later, he's still on the promotional tour from the first album, and he's looking at it like, okay, cool, I've got the next one ready. And they're like, do you know what, yo, we've just put the last one out. We need to let the audience relax for 3-6 months to build up suspense. And that's all stuff that you don't get to make those decisions anymore once you sign away, you know? And so for me, I don't know, man, this is my journey, and it's the journey of a lifetime. And I can't just give that to someone because they've got money, and it's not even their money, it's their company's money. Like, I think there's a reason that near enough every artist who comes off a major label is like, yo, I probably wouldn't do that again, you know, like, unless they're up enough where they can sign another one, and maybe you'll never hear them say that until they're 70 years old. But do you know what I mean? I think the industry, all of it is set up so that this special thing that's in your heart and soul can become monetized and used by people who don't have that in their heart and soul. And there's nothing wrong with playing that game if that's the game you choose to play, but you take what comes with it, innit? And it's not really me.
Staying on the industry and the contract stuff, right?
Hmm.
Is Caveman signed, or would Caveman like to be signed? Like, where's your mentality at with that one, bro?
Nah, so I'm independent. Everything I've done's always been independent. I feel like I'd always be open to any offer. I'd be more interested in signing like songs rather than signing myself. I wouldn't ever want to sign a 360. And I feel like, especially 360 just limits what you can do. Like if I put outta and it does well, I can turn around and say, right, I'm going to do a gig tomorrow. I feel for me, it's having my freedom to take this thing where I want to go. I think also I've learned over the years that having people involved who are not properly involved and are not involved from the bottom of their heart, it's worse than not having them there. It's better to do it on your own than to do it with, half interested people. So yeah, I'd always be open to talking to, because there's things labels bring to the table. Do you know what I mean? Like they have resources that I don't have, and especially working with like indie labels, I'm always open to the option of doing something that could work out for everyone's benefit. But it's not something I'm chasing.
Yeah, I respect that. So, final point, probably the most important one as well. When does your EP drop?
So it's coming out tomorrow, which is Thursday the 28th. So by the time you are watching it, should be out already. We had a little bit of issues earlier this week, which meant it's not going to be dropping on streaming platforms for a little bit longer than that. And I thought about pushing the whole project out, but I've been set on the fact I wanted it out by the end of this month. So it's going to be dropping on Bandcamp. So if you go to cavemanmusic.bandcamp.com, you can get it from there. And it's a free download up until the point that I can get it onto DSPs. It's going to be a free download. After that, it will probably remain free or pay more if you want. I've got my other stuff on there as well, which you can buy up there. So yeah, that's dropping, and the video for Styles is out right now. So it's CavemanM8, Caveman, letter M, number 8, and you can check out everything there. Most of my music is on streaming, and should be able to get the project on there before too long. But yeah, the whole project's going to be dropping tomorrow on Bandcamp.
Excited. I'm definitely excited. I've been following your music now for a hot sec, to be honest.
Yeah, man.
A year maybe?
Yeah,
I like it, man. I really do. I like seeing people that I grew up with, come and have these ventures. Like we spoke about people that we grew up with, all gone and done different things, and I like that, man. There's a warm feeling to being able to say like, "Bro, I used to be in class with them."
Yeah.
And me and you were started recording the podcast, so I love that, man. Anything my platform can do for you, I'm always open to that. I will attach all links in the bio on my Instagram account as well. I'll be pushing Caveman's work, so you'll be seeing it. I will try to get this podcast out within the 2-week mark, maybe less, honestly less, because kind of my fault. I had some studio issues. Caveman was meant to be in here earlier, if I agree with you. To be honest, I think I spoke to you last month, and I just had a crazy moment.
You're trying about this.
But I have been editing. So yeah, I think this has been great, man. Any final points to the listeners?
Yeah, you always just, if you want to try something, give it a try in it. Like, just give it a try. It doesn't really matter if you fall on your face. I've fallen on my face. Falling on your face is actually so much fun because, like, yeah, it's in check, yeah, because the first you roll around on the roller skates and you're so scared of falling, and then when you fall, you hit the ground, it's like, that hurt, but like it's done after that. Like, you no longer need to feel that fear of falling down. So just go and try something in it. Like, you don't need to be scared. Life's not as serious as you feel like it is in it. And most of the time, it means more to you than it does to everyone else. So go do it. If you're thinking of trying something, just go give it a shot.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I don't know what life is about, but always go and fight your doubts. And also with fear, man, when you fear something and you face it, the fear is then dead. So I always say this to creatives, man, like, don't just be inspired by other people. The world deserves to see your craft as well. Let yourself inspire others. So whatever it is you're doing in life, like Caveman said, it's okay to fall on your face, and it's not as deep as you think. So on that note, thank you very much for coming on, Caveman. It has been absolutely brilliant. I will drop this as soon as possible. All links in the bio. Take care. Like, share, subscribe, all the usual. I'll see you on the next one.
Peace.
Best foot forward, told you fight the fight. Wake up early in the morning, stretch and wipe your eyes. Plenty work to do and bills to pay, surprise, surprise. So carpe diem, do whatever if the price is right. Flow, compete.